With things heating up here in Arizona, it is time to talk about irrigating fruit trees. That's up next. Hello everyone, this is Dwayne with Edge of Nowhere Farm, and we're coming to you here at the end of June in 2022. If you've been following us along, you know that we have over 170 fruiting trees, vines, and shrubs here on this newly establishing desert farm. And today we're talking about exactly what we're doing to make sure that these guys have enough water to survive the heat. The two trees I have flanking me here are guavas. I have a pink guava here on my left, and we have a white Peruvian guava here on my right. Now we have a few different guava trees up here at the front of the property in addition to a blackberry bush. Now these are all on the same zone that we have all of our citrus trees on, and these trees don't need quite as much water as those do. In our efforts to conserve as much water as we can, we've done something different with these. What you'll find for these, we've actually chosen to do drip irrigation. We've put four 4-gallon per hour emitters on these trees, and these trees are on the same zone as citrus, which waters once per week for 2 hours. So these trees are getting about 32 gallons once a week here at the peak of summer. Over here next to me is our blood orange, and all of our citrus as well as our loquats are all on the same schedule here in the middle of summer. These are receiving 60 gallons of water once a week. That is spread through a bubbler head. And if you've seen our irrigation videos, you know how we have these rings set up. And at the top end of each one of these rings, we use a 1/2 gallon per minute bubbler that delivers the water into that ring underneath heavy mulch to make sure we don't have any evaporation. So 60 gallons delivered once per week into those rings around these citrus trees. I'm surrounded here by our kumquat trees. Now we have 4 varieties of kumquats here on the farm. Because these are dwarfing trees, they don't need as much water as our full-size citrus. These are on the same zone, however, as the rest of our citrus trees. So what we've done is we've split each one of the 1/2 gallon per minute bubblers. So each one of these dwarf trees is getting 30 gallons once per week here at the peak of summer. I'm here in our western orchard where we have all of our stone fruit and similar trees. We have 2 separate zones here, but they all water at the same pace. And what we're doing here is 1/2 gallon per minute bubblers running for 2 hours once a week, delivering 60 gallons per tree here on this zone in the middle of summer. Here on our eastern orchard, we have 36 trees on these 2 zones as well. This is where we have our pome fruit, our jujubes, and you'll see our fig trees behind me here. All of these trees are on the same schedule as the western orchard. They're receiving 60 gallons per week. That's once per week here in summer. We're back here at the back of the property. We have 12 of our larger trees behind me. You'll see our black Pakistan mulberries directly behind me here. These trees are designed to be large shade and fodder producing trees. So because of the size of the tree, 50, 60 feet by 30 or 40 feet wide, we do put more water on these trees to establish a larger root zone. These trees are receiving 90 gallons per tree once per week. I'm here under one of our contorted mulberries. We have 2 contorted mulberries and 4 Shangri-La mulberries that are our production mulberries here on the farm. These are all on the same zone, and they're receiving the same amount of water as our eastern and western orchards. That is 60 gallons of water once per week. Here we have our blackberry, and you can see some loofah growing here on a trellis. These are on the same zone as the rest of our mulberries, so they water once per week for 2 hours. However, we use multiple 4-gallon per hour emitters at each one of these bushes to water it once per week. Now, we also hand water this a couple times a week, and that's predominantly because we're trying to build soil in this establishing bed. But the reality for blackberries is once a week, each one of the individual vines needs anywhere from about 8 to 20 gallons, again, once per week. Now we're looking at our grapevines that surround our vineyard garden. These are all on their own zone. Now what we do is we actually have two 2-gallon per hour emitters that are on either side of each one of these vines. These were watering once per week for 3 hours, so each one of the vines was getting about 12 gallons once a week. So with the fruit set on these vines now, we want to make sure it doesn't have a shortage of water for that fruit. So we've doubled that and is now watering for the same amount of time twice per week. So each one of these vines is now getting 24 gallons spread out over 2 waterings each week. Now, one of the things I need to make sure I'm pointing out is the amount of water that we place on these trees is, number one, understanding that we're establishing soil around these trees still, in addition to watering them for their growth and health. We've already noticed that we've been able to reduce the amount of water that we had going onto these trees last year. At this same time last year, our 2 eastern and western orchards were both receiving 90 gallons, and that was spread out over 2 days in a week. This year we're noticing, even with all of the stress from the summer, that they're only requiring 60 gallons. So we've already reduced our water consumption on most of our trees by about 30% now that they're establishing. One of the ways we're able to do that is our heavy wood chip mulch that we have around all of our fruiting vines, trees, and shrubs. We've shown you this once before, but it's impressive the amount of difference in temperature at the top of the soil versus just underneath by a few inches. It can be as much as 30 degrees or more. So imagine these trees sitting out here in 105 plus degrees, but their roots are down there at 80 to 85 degrees. Just ideal for a fruit tree. So keep that in mind as you're looking at the amount of water that you're putting on your trees. So I'm sure there's going to be questions out there, and more specifically what it looks like in your backyard or in your orchard. But this is what we're finding works just fine for us here, and it is establishing the growth and production that you're seeing here today. So just want to thank you for joining us today. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. We cover a lot of things here on this newly establishing farm in the Arizona desert, but would love to see you on a regular basis. Any questions or comments, please leave those in the comment section down below. And our Amazon shop, I'm going to leave a link down in the description. That is a free, painless way to help support the channel. If you start with the link down below, it doesn't matter what you buy. You help to support us here. So just want to thank you for joining us today and remind you, if we can farm on the edge of nowhere, so can you. Once per week on that same schedule as the rest of our citrus. Who the heck? Okay, let me try that again.